Affirmations can be supportive, but they don't override a nervous system that doesn't feel safe. Words by themselves don't land until your body can receive them. In this video, I'll explain why this is true and how to use affirmations alongside nervous system support to experience meaningful change. Welcome to the You're Not the Problem podcast, where the conversations help you understand your nervous system, your patterns, and the adaptations that have been running your life so you can stop turning on yourself and start standing with yourself. In this space, we tell the truth about unwanted behaviors like emotional eating, overworking, people-pleasing, procrastination, and self-sabotage. We talk about what it's like to live with ongoing stress and overwhelm, how that state shapes your choices, your relationships, and your health, and how to step into a lighter, more grounded, deeply authentic way of living. My hope is that every time you listen, you feel less alone, more compassionate towards your patterns, and more rooted in the truth that you're not the problem, you're the possibility. Now, I'm excited to address this topic with you today because it's one that applies to all of us, right? And we've all been advised that the words we say matter. I often say that you are whoever you think you are. Another way of understanding this is to say that whatever your mind is consistently focused on is exactly what you will experience in life. If you have life circumstances that are not working for you, such as behaviors you don't want, like emotional eating, drinking, scrolling, procrastination, people-pleasing, negative thinking, or you have behaviors that you want to adopt, but you can't seem to follow through, you're going to love today's video because you'll gain insights and steps toward change. So let's start with the following question. If we are who we think we are, where did we learn to think this way? Now, the answer to that question is at the heart of my new book, You're Not the Problem, End the Overwhelm, Restore Energy, and Make Progress That Lasts. In the book, I explain that each of us has created adaptations of the mind and nervous system as a consequence of our life experiences and circumstances. These adaptations affect the way we see ourselves, others, and the world. Some of the most common thought patterns we adopt as adaptations are beliefs like the following. I'm not enough. I need to be better. I have to hustle for my worth. Or I'm only lovable or worthy if others say I am. Or if I achieve XYZ. Or maybe something like, I'm too weak, too old, too dumb to succeed. These adapted thoughts, they're not random. They develop as a result of experiences that you've lived through. At the time they were formed, these adapted thought patterns were very useful. Now, for example, I remember how absolutely convinced I was that I was a horrible person because I had a few extra pounds. And if I could just lose them, I would finally be worthy. That story was hurtful. It kept me from enjoying my life. But I didn't see it as a story. It just felt like my truth. This story, it was formed by my brilliant adapted self when I was a chubby child, and it allowed me to make sense of my circumstances. The story told me that the abuse and the lack of love that I experienced was due to the fat on my body. Now, I say this story was brilliant because it gave me a sense of control over the situation. It would have been far too much to bear that people would just do bad things to me for no reason. That would mean I had no control whatsoever. And this reality would have been terrifying to a young one. By believing I was the problem, I had the chance of being the solution. So these adapted stories, these are at the root of your negative self-talk, your acts of self-betrayal, your self-imposed limitations, and your pain. So take a moment and identify the stories that live in your head and that inform the way you move about your world. This is the first step to changing them and to changing your existence. If you want to feel peace, build success in your health and your relationships and your career, find more meaning, fulfillment, and joy, you have to think like the person who possesses those things. You have to become that on a subconscious and conscious level. Affirmations can help you rewrite your adapted operating system if you know how to use them and you use them in conjunction with other important practices. Now, once you get a sense of the stories that you're using to create your life, you can begin to change them. So let's say you've got the thought that you want to work with, okay? And you may say, oh, wait, I've got 50. That's okay. Pick one for now, and the others will be easier to work with over time. Now, maybe that thought is, unless I'm a certain weight, unless I am in a relationship, unless I'm making everyone happy, unless I'm making X amount of money, I'm not worthy. I'm not enough. Now we can take that story and ask two questions. Number one, where did I learn that? And two, what is that story producing in my life? What are the consequences of those stories? And do I like them? So take 58-year-old Sharon, for example. One of her many stories went something like, unless I am eating right, exercising, accomplishing everything on my to-do list, have an organized and tidy house, and people are pleased with me, I'm failing at life. Where did she learn that? Her family of origin. Subtle and overt messages like this came through from the time she was born. She learned very early on that high performance meant she was lovable, worthy, and safe, and anything less meant she was unacceptable. What are the consequences of this story? She wakes up every single morning of her life feeling behind, exhausted by what lies ahead for her day, never able to give herself free time without guilt. She feels like a failure. And her body has taken the weight of all of this. And the symptoms of that is she has no energy. She has extra weight. She has a whole host of other chronic conditions. This is not the life she imagined for herself. So what's the next step? Answer a simple question. What would you like instead? This isn't something I can tell you, but what I can tell you is that you have the answer to that question within you. It may take a little time to unearth your truth, but that's where we go next. For Sharon, the truth she wanted to embrace was that she was worthy without needing to achieve everything. She was worthy even when she didn't complete her list. She was worthy even when she was overeating or when someone wasn't happy with her. She wanted to set down the daily struggle and live in peace, at least some of the time. But rather than just jump straight into affirmations that proclaim her worth, we need to ask what she's ready to believe today, right? If the belief that she's worthy and can feel joy and peace and self-respect even when she isn't performing highly, if that's a mile away from where she currently sits, it's going to do very little to simply repeat it 1,000 times a day. It might feel slightly better in the moment, but it's not going to change anything. In addition, the state of the nervous system is a crucial component of changing our stories, because if your nervous system is stressed or overwhelmed, you lose access to the part of your brain that's capable of building new pathways. It's very common for people to work for years to change their thinking and their circumstances, but feel completely stuck in them. Trying to adopt ways of thinking and feeling that are too far away from your current thinking and having a nervous system stuck in survival are the two biggest reasons why affirmations don't necessarily work unless they're used correctly. And I'm not here to discredit affirmations. I use affirmations all the time with great success. I guide others in how to use them effectively as well. But there are important nuances to affirmations that I'm going to help you understand. Now stick with me here because I'm going to break things down in a way that will help you get the most out of your work to change your thoughts and your story. Now, as we have already said, your thoughts create your reality. Why? Well, our thoughts create our emotions, which then create our actions, which then create our habits, which create our life circumstances, right? Thought, feeling, action, habit, experience. So for example, when you think the thought, I'm such a loser, why can't I just stick with my diet? Or why is that person so much prettier, smarter, more interesting than me? Whatever the thought is. You feel a corresponding emotion. It could be sadness, despair, self-loathing, or all of these. Your emotions then cause you to take certain actions. You may reach for some sugar to feel better. You may throw up your hands, flop on the couch, grab your phone or a glass of wine and say, why bother? Right? And when you repeat these behaviors enough times, you've then created a habit. And at that point, you're no longer thinking about what you should do or what you want to do. You're just noticing yourself going through the usual motions without any real consciousness. And then the life circumstances you create through your habituated behavior, that might be extra weight, being stuck on the couch, hustling day after day without really getting anywhere, falling into the same unhealthy relationship over and over, having unfulfilled dreams, right? Your behaviors may seem like self-sabotage, but they're just in alignment with your thoughts and emotions. So with this model in mind, we can now discuss why affirmations alone are not the answer. So a thought like, I'm such a loser, started a cascade of emotions, actions, habits, and life circumstances because you believed it, and more importantly, because you felt it. And when you force yourself to think a thought, such as what we do sometimes with affirmations, but you don't actually believe it at all, or your nervous system is too activated to accept that thought, the effect of the thought dies. So for example, if you're experiencing financial scarcity and you think to yourself, I'm abundant, but you don't feel abundant, you're going to take action like a broke person, and that action will solidify your brokenness. Likewise, if you just polished off a pint of ice cream and you tell yourself, I'm on my way to weight loss and health, you won't feel healthy and light in your body. And you'll continue to take action like someone who's overweight and unhealthy. So for this reason, affirmations that are too far from our current thinking usually have very little impact on how we feel. So their impact on our life is very limited. A wholly unbelievable thought stops the chain of events. It doesn't create an emotion, an action, a habit, or a circumstance. Unbelievable thoughts halt the process. Now, I have a very wise client who can spot a thought that she can't believe from a mile away. She tells me, it's like you just told me I have a unicorn horn on the top of my head. This same client paid someone lots of money to create personalized affirmation meditations for her and was so frustrated that they didn't work. Now, it isn't that affirmations are bad or can't work. It's just that we have to choose our affirmations wisely. We must choose affirmations that are plausible enough to at least part of us. We have to choose thoughts that we can feel. That's the key. If the thought produces the feeling of growth and movement, it's one that will support us. If not, it'll have very little impact. So for example, if I want to adopt the belief that I am lovable and can have a healthy relationship, I might not be able to start with that particular thought if it's too far away from where I am. I may need to start with something more reachable. Maybe I would start with, I believe some people have found love in their life and that there are good people in the world capable of having strong, healthy relationships. Now, notice this statement has nothing to do with me. It's just putting it out there that it's possible that some people could experience this, right? And once this thought becomes comfortable, because I've worked with it for a while and found evidence of it, a practice called evidence journaling, I'll be able to move to a thought that relates to me. Maybe that will be something like, even though I've had some relationships that didn't work out, I learned a lot about myself, what I need and what it takes to be happy with a partner. All of this will serve me in my next relationship, right? And after that thought becomes believable and I'm feeling the energy of that possibility, I can move to the next thought. And this is how we move from thoughts of limitation and lack to thoughts that are consistent with the circumstances that we want to experience. This is how we move from the stories of the adapted self to the stories of the expansive self. How do you know if you've got a statement that could help you? It's easy. You ask yourself, how do I feel when you try it on? Does it feel like you're trying to convince yourself you're a unicorn? Or does it make you feel even a little bit lighter, more hopeful, more excited? If it's the latter, you have found a useful new thought or affirmation. And once you've found a thought that you can feel into, you've got something to work with. You spend time with the thought. And just as importantly, spend time in the new feeling. Where do you feel this new thought in your body? Is it a lightness in your heart? Stay with it. Is it excited butterflies in your tummy? Stay with them. Is it a release of tension in your chest or shoulders? Stay with it. Change is about both your mind and your body. It's about your neural pathways and your nervous system. Now, most of the techniques that were offered, they focus only on one of those doors, right? You're told to think differently, or you're told to regulate your nervous system. And very few approaches show you how to work with them both in a way that truly supports you. But real sustainable change becomes possible when you bring all of you into the process. Now, I write extensively about the mind-body approach to change in my new book, You're Not the Problem. If you want to learn more about how to rewrite your stories and work with your adaptations in a nervous system and trauma-informed way, Start by downloading a free copy of the book's introduction. The link is in the video description below. Change is absolutely possible when you have the tools and support to write new stories. Now, if this video supported you or even just sparked your curiosity, share it with someone who needs to hear that they are not the problem. Subscribe to the channel yourself and stay connected to the You're Not the Problem movement. I'll see you next time.